The biggest sleeper for the 2024 fantasy football season based on ADP has to be Trevor Lawrence, who is coming in as the QB 19 in ESPN ADP and the QB 20 in Yahoo ADP, hovering between the 11th through the 13th rounds. And I could just end this argument right now by saying that Trevor Lawrence has outperformed that ADP 2 years in a row now, finishing as the QB 8 in 2022 and the QB 13 last year. Those finishes are on the back of 2 straight 4,000-yard seasons and 21-plus passing touchdowns, plus another 300-plus rushing yards and 4 to 5 rushing touchdowns each season. From everything that we've seen from Trevor Lawrence in non-Urban Meyer seasons, you are drafting him actually below his floor at this current ADP. But I do think that 2024 has a very good chance to be the best season that we've seen from Lawrence in his NFL career so far. We've seen flashes and stretches of games where Lawrence looks every bit the elite franchise quarterback that he was drafted to be, and if Lawrence is able to put it all together over a full 17 games, he could have a truly amazing season. I think there's honestly something to be said about the fact that there is like a 2-minute video on Twitter right now of Trevor Lawrence near missed touchdowns from 2023. There are 15 clips in here of potential touchdowns that Lawrence could have had last year that even just like 5 of these would have made Lawrence a top 8 fantasy quarterback last year, just like he was in 2022, let alone if he connected on half or even more of these touchdowns last year. And honestly, the kind of hilarious part of this montage too is that the vast majority of these near missed touchdowns are to either Calvin Ridley or Zay Jones, who are both no longer on the team right now, so I'm actually not worried about Lawrence losing either of those guys. They still have Christian Kirk, still have Evan Ingram, and Travis Etienne in the backfield, all very stable, very experienced NFL veterans, and I cannot stress enough how amazing the addition of Brian Thomas Jr. is to this offense. He's going to open up so much for this offense in terms of being a downfield threat that they really haven't had since Trevor Lawrence has been there. I mean, all we really have to do is look at Lawrence and BTJ's reception perception charts to see that this is a match made in heaven. Last year, Lawrence excelled on intermediate to deep throws, especially over the middle and to the left side of the field, and you can compare that to BTJ's chart, which shows his massive success on intermediate and deep routes, especially on routes that shade to the middle or left side of the field. It is literally a perfect match, and BTJ's skill set is going to break open this offense's dynamic abilities. But we also can't talk about downfield threats without mentioning the addition of Gabe Davis, who the Jags went out and signed in free agency, and yeah, maybe isn't suited for wide receiver 2 duties in the NFL, probably isn't going to be all that great for fantasy football, but for NFL football and for Trevor Lawrence specifically, Gabe Davis as their vertical wide receiver 3 offers tantalizing big play upside. So now all of a sudden, this Jaguars team has speed, versatility, and a great combination of high upside youth and very stable experience, and I cannot wait to watch Trevor Lawrence with all of these weapons around him. I am more than comfortable leaving my drafts with him as my starting quarterback, and with an ADP in the double-digit rounds, you can build up a seriously dangerous and deep roster in the first 10 or so rounds, then grab Trevor Lawrence and bet on him having the best season of his career in 2024. But before we move on, I wanted to let y'all know to head over to 4for4.com and sign up for a subscription today to gain access to the industry's best fantasy rankings from award-winning ranker for accuracy John Paulson. Plus, you get access to our live draft assistant, cheat sheets, trade calculator articles, and there are additional packages for DFS and betting content as well. Make sure to use the code YouTube at checkout to receive 25% off of your annual subscription today. All right, now moving on to my breakout candidate for 2024. I'm actually going to dip into this rookie class of quarterbacks because I would not at all be shocked if Jayden Daniels finished as a top 5 fantasy quarterback this season. Now, the whole argument for Daniels is entirely built around projection and betting on his transition in the NFL, but we have seen countless times that one of the easiest things to bet on for rookie quarterbacks to produce for fantasy football is rushing ability, and Jayden Daniels offers that in spades. In 55 games in college across 2 different schools, Daniels rushed for over 3,300 total yards and 34 rushing touchdowns. That is 60 rushing yards per game and a touchdown basically 2 out of every 3 weeks. And if we look at just his 2 seasons at LSU, Daniels rushed for over 2,000 rushing yards and 21 rushing touchdowns. That is nearly 80 rushing yards per game and almost a touchdown every single week. That is insane production on the ground, and we haven't even mentioned yet that he is talented throwing the ball as well, with a career-high 3,800 yards and 40 passing touchdowns at LSU last year. But what really gets me excited for Daniels in the NFL is the offensive system that he was drafted into. The Commanders completely rehauled their coaching staff this year, hiring Dan Quinn for stability and defensive acumen, and hiring Cliff Kingsbury as their new offensive coordinator. Now, we've seen Cliff Kingsbury draft a mobile rookie quarterback with great arm talent before, back in 2019, named Kyler Murray. And as a rookie, Kyler finished as the QB7 overall in fantasy and the QB11 in fantasy points per game. And that was only while rushing for 550 yards and 4 touchdowns to go along with 3,700 yards and 20 touchdowns through the air. Imagine if Daniels is actually more productive on the ground this year, along the lines of like Anthony Richardson last year, who was pacing for 750 yards and double-digit touchdowns through effectively 2.5 games played. Or Justin Fields, who paced for over 650 yards during his time as a starter as a rookie. Or Lamar Jackson as a rookie, who rushed for 550 yards and 4 touchdowns in 7 games as a starter. Or even Josh Allen, who rushed for 600 yards and 8 touchdowns in 11 games as a starter as a rookie. If I'm being honest, the floor for Daniels feels like Kyler Murray in 2019, but the upside truly is a potential top 5 fantasy season as a rookie that you just got in the 9th or 10th round as the 12th quarterback off the board. It's 100% a home run swing, but if it works, you could be looking at a legitimate league winner at the position. And finally, we have to talk about my bust candidate for 2024, which really saddens me that we're at this point, but I cannot get behind Justin Herbert at all this year, especially as a top 15 quarterback in ADP like ESPN has him, ahead of Trevor Lawrence and even around guys like Aaron Rodgers, Tua Tagovailoa, Jared Goff. It just doesn't make sense to me based on all of the moves the Chargers made this year and every single one of them moving away from a pass-first offense. In 4 seasons as the 49ers head coach, Jim Harbaugh's passing offenses ranked 29th, 23rd, 30th, and 30th in passing yards per game, while also ranking 25th, 17th, 23rd, and 25th in passing touchdowns per game. For reference, since drafting Justin Herbert back in 2020, the Chargers have ranked 6th, 3rd, and 13th in passing yards per game, and 10th, 5th, 12th, and 17th in passing touchdowns per game. Basically, the complete opposite passing-wise in passing rate and production compared to Jim Harbaugh offenses. And Harbaugh was the same way at Michigan too in terms of passing yards per game. The Wolverines never ranked higher than 45th out of 133 schools in yards per game across 9 years, including multiple seasons outside the top 75, including the last 2 years, finishing 83rd and 84th overall with first-round quarterback J.J. McCarthy. Now, I don't want to make it sound like I'm comparing Justin Herbert to the likes of Alex Smith, Colin Kaepernick, J.J. McCarthy, and all the other bad quarterbacks that Harbaugh has had throughout his career. Justin Herbert is light years better than all of those guys, and I do think Harbaugh is going to throw more with Herbert than he has in the past, but I don't think we're looking at top 5 or even top 10 passing seasons from Justin Herbert anymore, at least in terms of raw pass attempts. Since entering the league, Herbert has averaged 40 pass attempts per game over his career, and it's one of the reasons why he's been so good for fantasy and was able to top 5,000 passing yards back in year 2. But if that number dips to 35 attempts per game and his efficiency remains the same, over 17 games, that is 4,200 yards and 28 touchdowns, which is equivalent to the QB8 overall in 2023. Drop those attempts down to 33 per game, and Herbert's now barely at 4,000 yards and 26 touchdowns, aka Baker Mayfield last year at QB 11. Drop those attempts down anymore, and Herbert is now struggling to even have enough volume to be a fantasy QB 1. And those are just the numbers from a volume and efficiency standpoint, not even mentioning the actual weapons or lack thereof that Herbert has to throw to when they do throw the ball. His wide receiver 1 is who? Josh Palmer, at least in terms of experience. Quentin Johnston is a certified bust. That writing was on the wall before he even got drafted. I am not at all a fan of Ladd McConkey, and I don't think that he has the skill set to be an NFL wide receiver 1 and lead a team as a receiver. The Chargers also got rid of Gerald Everett at the tight end position and replaced him with Will Disley. They got rid of Austin Eckler, replaced him with Gus Edwards, Kamani Vidal, and the corpse of J.K. Dobbins after all the injuries he had. It's just not a team that's built for significant passing volume, and when they do throw, Herbert's options are bleak at best. I mean, they got him looking like a Bugatti sitting in a mobile home carport, for crying out loud. So again, Herbert's upside seems massively capped for the 2024 season based on everything that's happened around him during this offseason. For reference, we currently have him ranked at QB 17 over on 444.com, yet he is going around or even ahead of multiple names that we have ranked ahead of him. So take advantage of his inflated ADP, let your league mates draft him instead, and you get someone better with a much better outlook for the 2024 season.